SmackDown was a 3-hour behemoth. I mean, I had to take a nap, yo. This review is like 5 in the morning. Usually I do the reviews right after the show, but my lord, bro, this kicked my ass. This show really did a number on me, so I had to go and get some sleep. So, let's talk about it. SmackDown, January the 3rd, 2024. We got a couple of news and notes to discuss. Number one note that's been floating around the internet for the last couple of hours is that the Royal Rumble will be in Saudi Arabia. And they didn't I don't think it specified which Royal Rumble or what year. I don't think I looked. But PW Insider and Fightful are now discussing that there will be a Royal Rumble event in Saudi Arabia. As I needed to look, it was Royal Rumble 2026. So next year's Royal Rumble will take place in Saudi Arabia. I'm not really big on where events take place anymore because they really don't hold that much significance. If it did, I would want every 10-year anniversary of WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. But they won't do that because they care more about money than they care about symbolism. If WWE cared about where events were held, we get more pay-per-views and things and such at Madison Square Garden. But they care more about money than they care about their quote-unquote home base. So these things don't matter anymore, where the shows are actually held. Now, there's a lot of people who are saying, well, you guys got like CM Punk, who is not going to perform in Saudi Arabia. He's never going to do it. And that's a legitimate statement, but it's a year off. We don't have to concern ourselves with that right now. Who knows? He might change his mind. Maybe, maybe not. If he doesn't, then guess what? It's just one night, or maybe 2 nights, or maybe 3 nights that he won't be there. They can write him off. He can miss the Rumble, or maybe he'll be the champion or something like that, and he could skip that show, or whatever the case may be. But I'm certainly not going to lose any enjoyment because the show is going to be in Saudi Arabia. I'm also not going to lose any enjoyment if CM Punk doesn't show up. So, I don't know. To me, it doesn't really matter that much where events are held anymore. The crowds are fun in international events. Quite often, those are some of the most fun crowds of the year. The Saudi shows are still tainted, where people truly continue to believe that the Saudis don't follow the product, or they don't care about women's wrestling, or whatever the hell. I don't think so. I think that if you present something that people will like, then they will gravitate towards it. So that's the challenge. Build something that people care about, and then maybe people will like it. But that's that. I don't really care about where the Royal Rumble is going to be held. It doesn't really make any difference. It's not like there's going to be, a beheading live on the Royal Rumble or something like that. It might be a huge spectacle, to be quite honest, which might actually be a good thing, because they might actually put some effort into this damn thing. All right. The second rumor is that there's been some discussions that Cody will be wrestling John Cena at WrestleMania. And I kind of discussed this before, where I guess it's one of the better options for Cena. It's a second option for Cody. They did a lot to build up Cody and Rock last year at WrestleMania, in the build up and afterwards. I would believe that they want to pay that off. The idea that they would abandon Rock versus Cody in order to go with Rock versus Cena. Cody versus Cena. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. The long story would be Rock and Cody, because they had history already. But the dream match for Cody, I believe, is Cena, if we're being honest. And then it's Cena's last year, so he's never going to get another chance to get that match done. That's a good question. If you're The Rock, though, I think you got some pretty big options there. You could wrestle Cody, but I think the money and the interest is in Roman. So I'm okay with Cody and Cena. if it gets us Rock and Roman. So I'm not going to complain about that at all. Or The Rock can just not perform at WrestleMania at all this year and just decide that he wasted everybody's time, which he very well might. He might well just decide that, yeah, I didn't care about any of this crap. But I'm not going to, again, it's not one of those things that I'm married to. Maybe as we get closer to the Royal Rumble, and maybe after the Royal Rumble, I'll probably have a stronger opinion on this. But as of right now, Cody and Cena is fine. They changed the color of the mat for Smackdown. The color of the mat is blue now. I like it. There have been other events, well, other companies who've had the solid blue mats. New Japan has it. NWA has it. WCW had the blue mat for a while. Which is probably why Triple H is pushing for the blue mat. They also had a black mat, which I think is going to end up being the Raw mat, that ended up having a bunch of sponsors all over the mat, like Snickers and Riyadh Season and Hulk Hogan's Rhythm Ellicott beer, just a bunch of stuff, and that probably will be the mat for Netflix Raw. I don't think it's going to be taped, but I think they probably just rolled it out there for a reason. But there's pictures of it up there. It looks like a New Japan ring. It's just so many sponsors all over the goddamn mat. I know Vince is somewhere having a fit and all that crap that they're putting on a black mat in the middle of his ring. But hey, it is what it is. Stop, feeling up the help. And you get to keep your authority and power. So I listened to a clip earlier this week of Vince Russo talking about his hatred of the brand split. And one of the things, he was very, very, very briefly rehired by Vince in 2002, shortly before the launch of TNA. And he claims that he discussed with Vince McMahon at the time that he wanted to end the brand split. And he wanted to get rid of the brand split. This was, again, in 2002. Now, it depends on what time in 2002. Because the brand split was in the middle of 2002. Because Brock was the champion. And it was pretty much one brand for most of 2002. And then I think in September or maybe August or something like that is when they started doing the brand split. Now, Vince Russo mistakenly said he did a brand split in the Attitude Era, which was not true. There was no brand split in the Attitude Era. But he did correctly state that there was two different crews that went on two different tours, because they had been doing that since the 80s. Vince liked doing that, which was the reason for the brand split in the first place. Most people think that the reason was to increase the value of SmackDown. No, he always had A towns and B towns. And he always had more than one team on tour at one time. And this was a whole thing where they would have a Hogan tour in the 80s, and then there would be basically everybody else. So sometimes the Intercontinental Champion would be the A guy on his tour, while Hogan would be the A guy on the other tour. And sometimes it would be the World Champion who would be the A guy if it wasn't Hogan. But 99% of the chance it was Hogan, right? But it's always been that way. I don't know whether that changed in the Attitude Era or not, but that's how Vince likes to run the company. He always had two tours running at the same time. So that was kind of the impetus for the brand split. It was we're going to have two tours. We should have, guys that are strictly for this show. That way fans can, build some brand loyalty. There could be some brand competition, that sort of thing. Let's get to the point. Vince Russo claims that he hates the brand split. He wanted to get rid of it. And he told Vince, "Oh, you don't have enough stars, bro. You don't have enough stars to do a brand split, bro." And he's disappointed that they're continuing the brand split even today, even though the brand split did end for a while. Most people didn't. And the brand split was never really that hard. It was not a hard brand split. And to be fair, there was kind of a brand split in WCW as well. with there were being certain guys who almost exclusively showed up on Thunder that I never saw on Nitro, and vice versa. But even though vice versa was usually rare. But I listened to this and I said, like, it's one of those things where Russo's trying to be the smartest guy in the room all the time, but Triple H is really showing us that he probably should not be running a brand split because he is absolutely dog walked SmackDown. I get it. Netflix is a big deal. We want to do something there, but you got to make SmackDown interesting. You can't just, I'm going to book all this stuff for Raw and we got nothing for SmackDown. Because what are you doing? What are you telling not only USA Network, who invested a ton of money into SmackDown, but what are you also telling the audience, who are you now saying, hey, watch 3 hours of this shit, but it's literally one of the most boring shows of all time, and nothing happens on this show. Oh, but Tiffany Stratton won the championship. Shouldn't you be happy about that, Mongo? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But there are no stars on this show. And then the people who are presented as stars in the company aren't really presented as stars on this show. And they don't even make appearances on this show. Now, again, most people just say, what was this Jim Cornette thing? They have so many stars. Cody's a star. Drew McIntyre's a star. Oh, they're all stars. Yeah, maybe. But they should be doing stuff. They're not doing anything. Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre had a segment on this show where basically, to truncate this, Cody thought Drew was going to challenge him for the title because Drew was coming out being disingenuous, and he wanted to help Cody. These two are former tag team champions. They've got history. But it's odd, and it does not fit Drew McIntyre's story, considering he said anybody who helps Roman Reigns is on his hit list, and Cody Rhodes has helped Roman Reigns. So, okay, whatever. Anyway, Cody Rhodes then said that he wanted to believe that Drew McIntyre is a kindred spirit because of all the similarities that they've had, like having to leave and come back. But he doesn't believe in Drew, and he questions whether Drew actually wants the belt. Drew said he only wanted to help, was not there to challenge for the title. He's done interviews claiming he doesn't care about the WWE title and all this kind of stuff, which is just him operating in character. Don't lose any sleep over that. And then as he's leaving, he tells Cody to watch his back, and Cody is jumped by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes have a brawl, and Kevin Owens is a top guy on this show, man. I just can't believe we still live in this reality. Anyway, Cody Rhodes ends up talking to Nick Aldis later, and Nick Aldis wants Cody to think of the future. His neck is no good, even though he's not wearing a neck brace or anything like that. And Cody Rhodes thinks that Nick Aldis is a good boss, but he's the champion. He's got to call his shots. He's got to carry the ball, And that's pretty much the end of it. Is Cody is bucking the system because he wants to be a fighting champion. Yeah, that's all well and good. I don't. This is not leading to a Drew McIntyre Cody Rhodes feud. They're planting seeds for it clearly, because Drew is probably going to end up on SmackDown sooner or later. But they're not in any way making this thing interesting. I don't want to see him rumble with this tubby bastard for the next 4 weeks. I just don't care, man. Kevin Owens is not interesting to me. We need to wrap this up as soon as possible. Now, a lot of people got a kick out of Drew McIntyre's promo because earlier in the promo, I skipped it on purpose, so I want to talk about it by itself. As he says that this is the best generation in ring. He did say in ring of all time, not the 80s, not the Attitude Era, not the 2000s, right now. And Cody Rhodes is the quarterback of that generation. And that actually got a decent pop from the crowd. They actually liked hearing that. I don't know why they liked hearing it, but it's not true. We all know it's not true. Most people are going to be running around talking about how great the Attitude Era was. But look, I'm going to dispel many of you attitude era remarks about what you're going to say. But what about Steve Austin and The Rock and Undertaker? It's like, yeah, what about them? And you had Gangrel and Midian and Al Snow and Hardcore Holly. And these people were like the majority of the show. Go back to the 80s. Roddy Piper, Jake Roberts, Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect. You know, there's not a legend on the show. Like Iron Mike Sharp is not on many of these shows. Right? When you watch like Saturday Night's Main Event, there might be some jabronis on there, you know, to put a guy over. But for the most part, hitters. All right? Hitters. All right? People who are really, really over and got a lot out of the crowd. Guys like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And I didn't even mention, you know, Savage and Hogan and Andre. Oh my God. Look, WWE has been very lucky to have an embarrassment of riches on their roster for most of the time that the company has been in existence. You know, the time where they had, you know, kind of a weak roster, I guess we could say, with the New Generation era, where it was basically just Shawn, Brett, Owen, Bulldog, Undertaker, and then a variety of people coming and going. But the main core guys were Shawn, Brett, and Undertaker. And that was pretty much it. You know, so people was coming in and out. Razor came in and out. Diesel. And, you know, there was Vader there for a while. King Kong Bundy was there for a little bit. Bob Backlund came back. Owen got pushed. Then he got de-pushed. Yokozuna was there for a spell at the top. You know, that kind of thing. The Attitude Era had quite a bit of talent, too, in the later years. Like in the earlier years, like say 97, 98, it was like Los Barriquas versus the Disciples of Apocalypse. Like, get fucked. Who the hell wants to watch that shit? And nobody's going to convince me that they was watching that thinking, this is the greatest era of wrestling. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody likes that. Nobody liked it then. Nobody like it now. So, get lost with the Attitude Era, okay? But today, they do have a lot of talented guys. They really do. Drew is one of them. Cody is another one. There's so much talent in NXT. They got so much talent that they have a lot of people who are sitting on the bench doing nothing. And then if you add that they actually use the women a little bit more effectively today than they did in the past, you do have an embarrassment of riches in terms of talent. But these guys are not as over as the guys were in the Attitude Era. They certainly weren't. And they're nowhere near as over as guys were in the 80s. Nobody's got a Drew McIntyre lunchbox. All right? Hate to break it to you. Nobody's got a Cody Rhodes lunchbox. They might got a Bloodline lunchbox, but they ain't got no Cody Rhodes lunchbox. All right? So I'm just saying, there's going to be people out there that's going to ride for the Attitude Era as the most popular era of wrestling history. I think it's clearly Hogan. I think clearly the Hulkamania era, when there was cartoons and the birth of video games, and Saturday Night's Main Event was, when Hogan and Andre had 33 million people watching it. I don't see how you could sit here and say, oh, this SmackDown, which is probably going to get 1.2 million or some shit like that, is the most, popular and, most profitable time in wrestling history. Now, the revenue streams are different, but that has nothing to do with the talent, right? It has everything to do with the brand. So they get this huge deal with Netflix, not because they have any specific talent, but because it's a popular brand. And I don't want to, just attack the talent, but when it's all what you do with them. Part of the reason why SmackDown was drawing so well was because the Bloodline were the central elements of the show, and now they're not. They're not. Roman barely even appears on these shows now. They do vignettes for him, but that's about it. They did a really good job last year of tricking everybody into thinking The Rock was going to be around, and then he disappeared, and he hasn't been back since. So, we're like, oh, wrestling is hot. It's cool again for these, what was that, 4 months. Then right after WrestleMania, it went right back to being a regular old wrestling, which is, not a surprise. WrestleMania is where it's supposed to get hot and feel fun and everything, and then it goes away. But that wasn't the case in the 80s. You could just watch shows, and not even like WrestleManias. You can just go watch Saturday Night's Main Event or some of the other TV products from the 80s. And you can see that the people are going nuts. And they're selling tons of merchandise. And look, inflation and recency bias and the strength of the brand and all that kind of stuff is what's leading to the success of the product today. And I don't want to dispel anybody or attack any talent, but I can tell you this. Drew McIntyre is saying what Triple H has been saying, and they're both liars. All right, you're a liar. You can talk. Look, inflation is doing great. The buildings are bigger than they used to be too. These buildings are holding 60, 70,000 people. These events are 2-day events now. There's a lot more money to be made today than there was in 1986, let's say. So that would be a huge difference in revenue streams. But ultimately, I think if you look at it from a talent perspective, there's just no way they could compete with the Ruthless Aggression era, which actually legitimately did need a brand split when they weren't doing stupid shit like having Bubba Ray Dudley in the main event. But in ring, they cannot compete with the Ruthless Aggression era, and they can't compete with, the Hogan age. Forget it. Get real. Moving on. Proof that they can't compete. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Andrade, which feels like the 8th time they've wrestled each other. It's probably only the 2nd or the 3rd, but my God, I feel like they've been wrestling a lot. Of course, Nakamura wins this match. Then he's chased by LA Knight. LA Knight cuts a promo later about stomping on Shinsuke Nakamura's head. I got a kick out of this promo. It was actually pretty good. But then he announced he's going to get a title match next week. So there's that. So all of this is going to be coming to a head soon. I'm not a big fan of Nakamura's mentor being the Great Muta, because it's not true. It's actually Antonio Inoki. They would know this if they paid attention. But they're trying to put over why Nakamura is spitting mist and looking all dirty and stuff. Oh, it's because of the Great Muta. Like, okay. I'm pretty sure, Muta he grew up with Muta maybe. But if you know anything about Nakamura, you know that, especially if you read his book, I read some of it. He writes extensively about Antonio Inoki. And his interesting relationship with Antonio Inoki. Inoki was kind of abusive and everything, so maybe he's allowed Muta to adopt him. But I know they're trying to explain why Nakamura is spitting mist and everything now. But get real. Poor Andrade, he came back for this. Whatever. LA Knight still very popular. People still like this guy, so he's going against the grain right now. Because he's not featured a lot, and he certainly doesn't wrestle a lot. He certainly hasn't won much lately, but it hasn't taken the crowd out of it. The crowd's still there for him, so they're getting over with this. Pretty Deadly walked up to Apollo Crews like they were going to do something to him. Said snitches get stitches, but he wasn't concerned at all, which is the absolutely right response for him to have. The Legado del Fantasma then showed up, and they were upset about Pretty Deadly's lies. They were trying to wring their necks. And then Nick Aldis kind of got in the middle of this, had to chat with Pretty Deadly about their lies. Then DIY stuck up for Pretty Deadly, says that Apollo Crews is a tattletale. Nobody should listen to him. And they said that they love Pretty Deadly. I think that Pretty Deadly deserve a championship match. And they would be willing to give them a championship match, but only if they can manage to get out of this night as the champions, which of course set up the big situation for later. Motor City Machine Guns cut a promo about betrayal and Johnny Gargano being a wolf in sheep's clothing. Those guys are not strong promos. They really aren't, but whatever. There's a match. Tag team titles. DIY versus the Motor City Machine Guns. The match ends in a disqualification because Pretty Deadly tumbled into the ring after being chased by Legado del Fantasma. And some people were into this. I wasn't. I don't care about these teams. And they've done a good job of not making me care about Pretty Deadly either. I mean, a year or so ago, Pretty Deadly would have been very fun. But now they've been treated like garbage for so long. It's hard for that to just change on a dime. They're going to really have to put some effort in to getting people to care about Pretty Deadly. The same thing with Los Garza. You know, I like Los Garza. I like both Pretty Deadly and Los Garza. But they've treated them like crap. And it's clear that these guys are only getting exposure because the show's 3 hours. You know, if the show was 2 hours, they wouldn't be on it at all. You know, because most of the time they haven't been on it. The heel turn for DIY hasn't taken me for a ride at all. It's just kind of been a thing that occurs on television, I suppose. So, whatever. I'm just not interested in the tag team division. It's weak. Mia Yim defeats Piper Niven. This match was dreadful. I didn't want to watch it. I can't believe Piper Niven is the size that she is. She's like a big old Kirby. And she can't beat Mia Yim. This is terrible. Everything about this is rough. This was definitely snack time. If I ate after 6 o'clock, no 7, then it would certainly be snack time. But I think I ate some fruit snacks or something. I had to eat something to stay awake in this shit. Paul Heyman, he came out, said that him and Roman trained Solo to be the tribal chief, but he's not there yet. Solo went out and got some filthy animals because none of us would acknowledge him, being the original members of the Bloodline. I liked his segment about Jacob Fatu, that Jacob Fatu is not allowed outside the prison system. Solo came out there. Heyman said that he nearly pissed his pants because the last time he was in the ring with Solo, he got put through a table. That's a good member berry. So Solo says that he wants a favor. He wants Paul to acknowledge him. He said he needs somebody that loves and trusts his family to hold the Ulafala while after he beats Roman, somebody to acknowledge him. He's going to make Paul his wise man. I'm going to make you my bitch. Very much jail coded. Anyway, this led to Paul and Solo being in the ring, but I don't know why the Usos and Sami Zayn didn't come out at least during this segment, because I mean Solo was being menacing in this situation, and you're just gonna leave Paul to, I don't know, maybe they don't care about Paul. Is that the story? That Jimmy, Jay, and Sammy, they don't care about Paul at all? But they seem to care about each other. As Carmelo Hayes was talking trash to Sami Zayn and Braun Strowman, to be quite honest, about him getting that work, Jimmy and Jay showed up and had Sammy's back, and it was an odd decision to have the baby faces scare the heel off. That was an odd decision to have a 3-on-1 standoff here. And Carmelo, of course, takes off because why would he want to deal with that? Kevin Owens is walking around with the Winged Eagle belt still, which we are now told is going to be the only belt dangling from the ring during the ladder match, or is it going to be both belts? I don't know. I don't remember. Who cares? Anyway, he has a run-in with the Usos that does not end in a fight, but him telling the Usos to watch their back. Oh no, he said the same thing that Drew McIntyre said earlier. You remember when Drew McIntyre told Cody to watch his back, and then Kevin Owens attacked Cody from behind? Well, what do you think happened in this main event? It was Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Solo Sikoa, or the Bloodline, versus the Usos and Sami Zayn, also known as the Bloodline. And this was a rough one. It was a fun match, though. Jacob Fatu goes out there and shows that he is worth every penny. He goes out there, he proves that he's worth every single penny that he's being paid, and probably deserves a raise for him screaming, "I love you, Solo!" and he got other people saying it. Like, these are the people when Solo says acknowledge me, they boo. But they yell, I love you, Solo, with Jacob Fatu. Do they not realize what they're saying? do they not get that? Anyway, he cut a promo before the match. I wake up every morning thinking about how I love you, Solo. I'm like, ooh, that's cringe. But it's funny. It's hilarious. I go to sleep at night thinking about how much I love Solo. I'm like, oh. I sprinkle my love for Solo all over my oatmeal. Well, okay. I guess. Anyway, Bloodline Wolfpack wins the match because Jacob Fatu is on that team. He don't lose. Drew McIntyre was at ringside. He got attacked by Jay. He basically just jumped on him. But that was essentially it. I mean, there was not a lot of interference in this match. Actually, the Bloodline Wolfpack pretty much kicked their asses. There was a spot where Sami Zayn and Tama Tonga, they were doing a ground and pound spot where Tama was throwing some really terrible punches. And so Sami Zayn threw some punches up from his back. And it looked like they were trying to have a Fried Takayama situation. They were on the ground. But they had all the accuracy of stormtroopers. It was an interesting spot because I didn't hate it, but I didn't necessarily like it either. I mean, I like the struggle of pro wrestling. Like, you know, when you show that you're not just going to lay there and take it, that's good. But when you're basically just, I don't know, having completely and totally ineffectual because you're on your back, it's not good. You know, it's not good. But I guess visually it was interesting. But those were not live rounds, and I don't think anybody got harmed in the filming of that scene there. Anyway, that's the bulk of SmackDown. The stars were all being saved for Raw, but there was a big moment, and the biggest moment of the night, of course, was Tiffany Stratton becoming the WWE Women's Champion. It started with Naomi and Nia Jax. They showed a video package for Naomi. They had a backstage segment where Candice questions where Tiffany Stratton was, thinking that she was jealous. And she just overcomplicates things anyway. And that she's going to do whatever it takes to make sure that Nia Jax is the women's champion after the match. Nia and Naomi do not have a good match. It was not good. It was quite terrible, actually. Nia Jax is just not good. I mean, that's just part of it. Naomi, I'm on the fence because Naomi has good matches sometimes. She had good matches in TNA. I'm not so sure she's had a breakthrough match in WWE yet. But this match was certainly not good. And it was certainly, I was certainly happy when it was finally over. So Tiffany Stratton comes to the ring and she threatened to cash in her briefcase. And this, of course, was a distraction to everybody. And then she pulled the briefcase back and hit Naomi in the head with it. Naomi was then pinned by Nia Jax. So Naomi, this was a waste of time because I don't think anybody knew Naomi was going to win. Nobody believed Naomi was going to win anyway. But you wasted everybody's time with this title match. That was terrible, to be honest. It was not good. And then it was kind of okay. The swerve was fine because Tiffany had been involved with Nia all this time, and it was just a ruse to get everybody to think that Tiffany and Nia was on the outs. I get that, and it's part of the swerve that's coming later. So after wasting about 10 minutes of our lives with Nia Jax and Naomi, they're going to continue the beatdown. Nia Jax is going to squash Naomi, and then all of a sudden, Tiffany Stratton hits Nia Jax with the briefcase while she's on the second rope. So she's kind of like dangling on the second rope. Bianca Belair gets in the ring, lifts Nia Jax from the second rope, hits her with the KOD. And I'm like, holy guacamole. What a spectacle. What a sight, right? Bianca, hey, she's still there. She's still present. And she's still doing amazing shit. She picked up Nia Jax, carried her, and did a KOD. And then she gets taken out by Tiffany Stratton. And then Candice LeRae gets taken out by Tiffany Stratton. And then she cashes in her Money in the Bank briefcase. And even though Nia Jax was not standing up, the match is allowed to go on. And Tiffany Stratton wins the women's title with the prettiest moonsault ever. Which, of course, is going to lead to a huge feud between her and Nia Jax. I'm glad they didn't drag this thing out any longer. Because, my God, how much longer could they have dragged it out? But it seems to me like Triple H had this in a break glass in case of emergency situation. Not because it was planned. This felt like it was hot-shotted to Tiffany Stratton. Yes, they've been teasing it. But ultimately, this did not feel like it was a huge moment for people like me who had been watching Tiffany since she was on NXT, who saw her on Level Up, and, cared about her presentation, but she has not won a match since she won the briefcase. She had been a complete and total loser and a lackey. And now the loser and the lackey is the champion. And you're like, oh, okie dokie. Sure, whatever. I would think that if you're going to change something, like we care so much about the color of the match and whether you have a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view or not. It's like the things that really need to change are booking the Money in the Bank winner like shit. Nobody does this to the Royal Rumble winner. Like the Royal Rumble winner don't lose 100 matches thinking, oh, well, he's got a main event WrestleMania, of course. That doesn't make sense. The way you book people dictates a lot of the response that you have with them. And if you're going to have the idea that they're going to have to pay their dues, then have them do that before they win the Money in the Bank. So that kind of took some of the shine off of it for me. But as somebody who was a fan of hers after probably her second or third match, this was huge, clearly, because she should be the world champion. She is literally that good. It might be pretty privilege. It might be white privilege. I saw some people say that. Oh, Naomi worked so hard and they gave it to the white girl. Or, oh, Bianca's been sitting on the bench for 2 years, but they gave this title to the white girl. You don't understand. The white girl is incredibly talented. If it was Candice LeRae or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, white privilege maybe, because that's the only thing she's got going for her. But Tiff, she can talk. Her presentation is on top when she's really good. And she's in the ring, she's amazing. So we really can't find any weaknesses in Tiffany Stratton's game. I don't want to hear anything about it being too soon. She's not good enough. Nah, she's great. She's legit. Is she like the girl Brock Lesnar? Yes. She should have been, I'm not saying she should have been a world champion like immediately, but her presentation should have been better. She should have been presented almost like the girl version of Kurt Angle, where, yes, it's going to take her a while, but she shouldn't have been out there losing a lot, She should have been better protected so that people would, take it in more. But she's been over despite this stuff because I guess people are not paying attention to how shitty the booking has been because she's gotten great reactions ever since she came up, despite the fact that she's been booked like a lackey and a loser. So she survived. So that's good. But Nia Jax has been booked like shit too. She's been champion since, I don't know, SummerSlam. She's probably lost like 100 matches since then, which is quite ridiculous. But I'm interested in what we're doing with Tiffany Stratton. Clearly, they got her in the middle of this thing with Nia Jax. And of course, then there's Candice LeRae. Then, of course, there's Bianca. And then Naomi again. I'm kind of over the Naomi part of this ordeal. The Jade Cargill piece is still there. Maybe they'll try to do Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton. But I think the big picture is Tiffany versus Charlotte. I'm thinking that's probably going to end up being the thing. Now, of course, this means that, Mongo, you were wrong. You thought it was going to be Jade Cargill and Nia Jax. I did. That would have made sense. I'm glad that it's not. I think Jay getting injured probably had a lot to do with that. Who knows how long she's going to be out. But now it seems like the new move might be Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte. Which, if that's going to be the case, I'm fine with that. A sort of new versus old kind of situation. But I would have liked for the roles to be reversed and for Charlotte to be the champion and Tiffany to be the challenger, because that just makes sense for the symbolism. And plus, if you're going to tell that story, Tiffany should have won the title straight up and not won it with Money in the Bank shenanigans that involved Nia Jax getting hit with a briefcase and hit with Bianca Belair's finish. But whatever. If they're going to do Tiffany versus Charlotte, I'm 100% cool with that. The women's division is in complete disarray. Even though they have introduced this U.S. title, they've done nothing with it. It's been 3 weeks, and they haven't done anything with that belt. And something tells me, well, that belt's pretty much dead already, unfortunately. So how they present Tiffany Stratton is really going to matter here. They haven't presented her strongly up to this point. What we need is whatever magic that they found in NXT to port that over to SmackDown. That's really what I want the most out of this. I want Tiffany to be cocky. I want her to be confident. I didn't want her to be, Nia Jax's lackey who's scared of her and, oh, I'll go get you some tea, Nia. How about I throw you a birthday party, Nia? That's stupid. Like, she wasn't the character to do that. You could have done that with somebody else. So her presentation needs to catch up to who she actually is and what we know her to be from her time in NXT. And part of that is going to be how they decide to book her from this point forward. If you go back and you look at some of her celebrations and entrances and things like that from NXT, those things are missing from her SmackDown presentation. And we need to bring some of that in. For starters, probably need to change that theme song. I know most people don't care about theme songs anymore, but I liked her NXT theme more. I think it was more dramatic, and it actually fit what she was trying to do there and what she was going for. I'm not sure what the Tiffy time gimmick is, other than her just yelling it. So we need to really kind of define what her character is. And if you're going to have her wrestle Charlotte, have her be like Charlotte, kind of, and give Charlotte something to talk about in terms of Tiffany modeling herself after Charlotte and how she's a ripoff or all that kind of stuff. Go there with it, at least somewhat. And so you'll then have a sort of Buddy Landale, Ric Flair situation where, oh, you call yourself the Nature Boy too, huh? That kind of gimmick, And I think that's the match that Tiffany wants, is she wants to wrestle Charlotte. I want to see Tiffany wrestle Charlotte. The issue is, do Charlotte win the Royal Rumble? And that's how we get that match, because I don't want that. I don't want Charlotte winning the Royal Rumble, I can tell you that much. But Tiffany being in the spot is much better than Nia being in the spot. The matches are going to easily be better. The problem is, it's the same people. It's, Tiffany's been mixed up with Nia and Candice and Bianca and Naomi and Bayley for months now. And it's going to be the exact same people going forward. And this division is cold. So they got to do something to heat this thing up. But I'm not thrilled about how they executed the title switch. I think there was too many people involved. I think they wasted Bianca Belair's KOD on Nia Jax. I think that was a big spot that they kind of threw away in order to build up Tiffany Stratton, who didn't really need it because she could have done something else in order to win this match. I mean, you already hit the girl with the briefcase, right? But maybe I'm just down on it because I'm down on SmackDown. But I'm a big fan of Tiffany Stratton, and I think she's going to be an amazing champion if they book her correctly. Hopefully, she gets better booking as a champion than Braun Breaker, because Braun Breaker has been absent on every show since he won the title. I don't think he's even been featured on Main Event. So, for Tiffany, she got there pretty quickly, but she's super over. And she has an opportunity to really show people why she was the right decision and why she should have won it straight up and didn't need Money in the Bank shenanigans. But hopefully this thing turns it around, but I think history, when you look at history, it hasn't been good. It's been a very terrible time for that women's title. Ever since they renamed it and Bayley had it from WrestleMania to now, it's been a mess. Tiffany's got a lot of work to do if she's going to change that thing around. So at that point, we need Charlotte and Bianca to get more involved. But that big nose bozo is going to have to actually realize the talent that he's got sitting on the bench while he's pushing Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. Get Bianca more involved in the show. She is, you notice that she's in pretty much all of the posters and all that stuff, and she's not featured at all as a single star on this show. How weird is that? Like, they have Bianca Belair involved with everything, and she's in a tag team. And her storyline is not even moving. Like, it's one thing if you just want to, oh, hey, she's going to be, over here for a little while, but her storylines are still going to be important. That's not even the case. She's accompanying Naomi to the ring, not really giving a shit at all about what happened to Jade Cargill. This is another week where there was no investigation, no discussion at all about what happened to Jade Cargill. It's out of nowhere she's going to pop up and point the accusatory finger like the monkey in Family Guy at somebody with the gritted teeth, and we're going to be off to the races. But hopefully, Bianca is more involved. Triple H has to stop being a bozo and actually get that girl involved. And Tiffany Stratton's got to be better presented. And then maybe you could turn the women's division around from this piss poor decision to feature Nia Jax and Bayley in central positions. It's like, okay, get over them. Yes, they were the NXT black and gold babies, but get over them. Move them to the side. We have to do other things now. All right, that's SmackDown. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys later.